stepped down from my job as CEO to focus in the last couple of years on a different kind of cancer. Not a biological cancer, but a cultural cancer that I worried threatened to kill that dream that Martin Luther King had 60 years ago. That threatened to kill the dream that allowed me to achieve everything I ever had over the course of my career. And the cancer came in two parts, and I'll go through each in turn. The first is the first half of my title of my first book, Woke Inc. It was a new secular philosophy, almost a secular religion in our country, that said that your identity is based on your race, your gender, and your sexual orientation, full stop. That if you're black, you're inherently disadvantaged. That if you're white, you're inherently privileged. Crucially, no matter your economic background or upbringing, your race and your gender govern who you are, and even the thoughts and ideas you're allowed to have. I'm a big believer in not putting words in the mouth of someone who disagrees with you, but to take somebody's best view from the other side at its own terms and take it seriously. Take the words of Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who I respect for offering and articulating a clean statement of this worldview, when she clearly said that and this is her exact quote, "We don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice." And embedded in that worldview is this idea that your race is not just about, for example, your skin color, but it's also something that relates to the content of the ideas you're allowed to have. And we began to live in a moment where any disagreement with that set of views then came to be labeled with terms like the R word, racist. And there being no greater damnation in modern America than to be called a racist, began to silence the free exchange of ideas in our country, giving people a choice between either pledging allegiance to that new religion or being tarred with the scarlet R. We ended up with a cultural moment in our country where everyday Americans began to bend the knee. And as I shared with some of you before this event, I personally believe that the best measure of the health of any democratic society, especially American democracy, is the percentage of people who feel free to say what they actually think in public. And I think that this led to a threat to that measure of democratic health over the course of the last decade and a half. Now, over that same period of time, you had the second element of this cancer, the one that was alluded to in my introduction, which was a new trend that emerged over the exact same period, which was a trend in the business world, a trend in our economy and in commerce, which said that the role of a business in society was not just to deliver a product and a service to a customer for the pursuit of profit, but also to advance other, potentially worthy, but other societal agendas along the way as well. Fighting climate change, systemic racism, and so on. Worthy social causes that government hadn't stepped up to the plate to address sufficiently in ways that private sector leaders had to do it instead. That is the new trend known as stakeholder capitalism, that a business must look after not just the interests of its shareholders, but also the interests of a more diverse array of so-called stakeholders.